Aslam Ali, and welcome back to my channel. So today we will learn how to insert a tabular data, right? So if we have a Excel sheet tabular type of data, so how to insert tabular data in single row in queue, right? So this type of scenario sometimes occurs when we are doing some reporting type of activity where we have a parent-child relationship type of activity. So this type of situation, if parent will one and some child will be common or some detail will be common for one parent, right? So such type of scenario, sometimes we need to use all the data in single row, right? So for handling this, we need, so we will learn how to do this type of activity, how to insert tabular data in single row, right? And then at the processing time, how to revert back this tabular data. So these 2 points we will learn, right? Uh, so hope in my previous video you have already seen how to convert a data table in the JSON format, JSON string and then JSON format. So the same thing we will follow here. So first I will convert this data table in JSON string so that this tabular data converted as a single string. After that we can insert this in queue, right? So this will be converted in the string, and then if we want to add another column, then we can also add the same column along with this data table in queue. Okay, so let's go. Okay, so now this is my queue. So I just created a blank queue, new queue. So there are no data available here. I delete all the things. If you see, this is the fresh queue and no transaction item available here, right? So let's move on the UiPath Studio. So first thing, so what is the first steps? I need to read this data, right? So for reading this, I need to use the Excel application, Excel activities. So first Excel process scope, right? Then I will use Excel, and here I need to provide the file path, right? So this is the file path, and now here I will use read range activity so that it will be coming in the data table. Right? So I'm using Excel read range activity, and so for taking the read, I'm using the sheet. So what is the reference here? The reference is Excel. Right. So Excel com dot sheet one. So all the data are from sheet one. So and it will be stored in the data table dt just mention employees. Right. So now data table created. Excel sheet data is loaded in the this sheet. Now we need to convert this data table to string format, right? JSON format. So how to convert this in the JSON string? So for doing this, I have already imported one namespace, one DLL newtonsoft.json. So I already imported this newtonsoft.json. So you need to insert this JSON newtonsoft.json in your namespace, right? Okay. So how to convert this? So we have a syntax here, newtonsoft.json dot JSON converter, right? And then we use serialize JSON convert dot serialize object, and here I need to pass this dt. If you see, so in the serialize object, it's accepting object. So I'm passing this data table. So I already created one video on this, so you can check how to serialize, right? And it will be stored in the str JSON data. I just created one variable, string variable. Yeah, okay. So now the next task is I need to add this string variable in the queue. Right. So hope it will be simple. So once you converted, you are generally doing these things by adding data in the queue. Right. So I'm using add queue item. Okay. So I'm selecting my shared folder. This is the queue name I newly created, and here I simply just sheet data. You can give any key name, right? And the type is a string because we have already converted the tabular data in the string format, right? If you want to add any other parameter, so you can also add the parent parameter apart from this tabular data. So you can simply add this. Just for example, if I suppose you have some ID, just for example, right? So you can put those ID 1, 2, 3, just for example, right? And okay, and the reference section, since we are using add to queue item, so reference will be some important features so that we can track where which line item is executing and what is in this line item. So that with the help of reference we can track. So just for example, this is uh, testing row. So testing one. So the queue will be added with testing one. Now after adding the data in the queue, we need to fetch the data from queue. Get transaction item. So for fetching the data, we need to use get transaction item, right? And this will be accepting queue name, right? And the output for get transaction item is queue item, right? Trans item. So I was just using trans item, right? So this variable I had created. So if you see now, the variable type is queue item, right? Okay. So okay. So now the data was coming. So I'm putting two message box. One message box here to know how the JSON data is look like, right? And another message box. Okay. So now we receive here, we are fetching the transaction item from queue. So we need to read the tabular data, right? So for reading the tabular data, we are generally using assign activity. So how to read the data from queue? So generally we are using the assign activity, and you are using trans item dot specific context, right? And then here we need to provide the key name, right? What we inserted here. So the key names are sheet data. We record only these details. Dot to string. Simple. So generally we are doing this. Generally in the daily work we are doing transaction item dot specific context, and then we are okay. So value of the required activity argument two was not supplied. Okay, two was not supplied. So the return type is a string, right? So I need to create one string variable. So str trans item, can give any good name according to your requirement. I just put str trans item and data type is string. Okay, that's all. Okay, so now transaction items are came back here. So I need to convert back this transaction item in data table. Right. So since this transaction item is uh, array of J format JSON string, so we need to convert this in the data table. So now we need to deserialize again. So we will use the Newtonsoft same Newtonsoft.json dot JSON object JSON convert dot deserialize object, right? And here if you see value of a string and it will be converted as object. But if you see we have 8 overloaded method for this deserialize object. So let's see the second argument, second of method. So it will be returning data type as of t as t. So t is the data type. So any type, either it is string or integer or even the data table also we can return. So why, if this feature is already available here, then why we need to do multiple activity, right? So first we need to convert object and then uh, retype casting again in data table. But here we already have the feature, so simply we can utilize this feature data table, right? Okay, if you see now the value was converted data table, and here I can it accepting parameter is string. So we have already transaction items in string. So str tran item, and we need to store in the data table, right? dt1. So we need to convert the type as data table. Sorry. Okay, so now error has gone, and we need to use this message box just for debugging purpose. I just hold this. Okay, or simply I can add frequent here. That's it. Okay. Okay. So one more point I want to explain you. So since sometime you face one error here, transaction item dot specific context, right? So normally in the older version this code is working fine, and even that in here also it will working fine, right? But sometime it will give error. There are too many argument or something, right? So it will give too many argument supplied or not provided, so you got some errors, right? So what you require to do, so this UiPath latest version 23.10 provided some new feature. So you need to use get value or default, right? So just use this. So this will also work, right? So if your code is not working and you got errors, right, by specific contents, then use this code. So both will work, right? So just use this. But here, yeah. So now both, if you see the error has gone for both cases. So I'm using this code, right? This is the new overloaded method, extended method, not overloaded method. So this is the extended method. So to resolving this type of issue, UiPath is just upgrading this extended method, right? So, but in my cases also the older error was not come on the older code, so I can use both. I can use the older code, but yeah, if you face such issue, then just remember use this extended method, right? So, how to identify this is extended? So, if you see, this is the down array, and that is the unbreakable down array. So, this type of method is called an extended method. Okay, so I'm using extended method also. Okay. So now go on the queue and just refreshing. Just see there are no item in this queue. I'm going on the UiPath Studio. I need to close this. Okay. Yeah. So if you see the code was run first, it was first message box shown this string value, right? So this is the first message box. Once they converted this JSON string. So this is the message box. So this is the JSON string array. So the square bracket is shown in the array. So they are just string format of the JSON array, right? So now after it, the code was inserted this, right? And also the bot fetch the data from the transaction item, right? So this new code also work perfectly. A specific value, it will return the data. And if you see the value of the data table here, after deserializing this, just see, if you see, yeah. So now our actual data table value was come back to us. So now we can use this data table and utilize in our code. And now let's move on the orchestrator so that we can see. Yeah, if you see, so one item was added and the status is in progress because we already use the get transaction item. So get transaction item will be actually converting status from new to progress. If you go on the data, so just see. So first seed data, the value was in the JSON format, and second, uh, for second data, we have added ID, right? So this is the way through which you can just convert this data convert this data table in the single and insert in the single row and also convert this data table back to the data table from JSON format. Right. So that's all from this video. If you have any query, if you want to ask anything, just uh, give me the comment or feedback. Thank you. Thank you everyone for watching this.